just hit that build order. Good luck, have fun, man.
Thank you.
Alright, so because he's very much a by feel player, his build orders were also quite loose and didn't really have game plans for some of the situations like mech where he was weak. He was kind of just like, hey, not that great against mech. But I think what we're really going to see here is a development in that and a lot of refinement in this game where hopefully he's taken that. It looked like he learned Vipers really well in the last game, last coaching session. I think he's going to take it to the next level pretty quickly. We'll see. We will see. Yeah, we talked about Roach Hydra Viper adding lurkers if needed. I'm loving that style versus mech, so I was like, hey, just do this. Mostly the Roach Hydra Viper is the biggest thing. But I remember his opening being really, really loose in the previous games. Yeah. So I think we went default roaches for safety. And then it's like, if we're playing bio, we go Ling Bane. Just because that's like a safer start. Allows you to push back Hellions a bit easier. But we did decide to do later roaches. Now, because I've coached a lot of players just like Warlock here before, I'm going to take a little bet. And I'm going to say he's going to go the Roach Horn too fast. And try to rely on roaches to defend. And the problem, or not the problem, but one of the big areas for efficiency gain in the early game, I think is still going to be there from last session, which is building queens on time, positioning them properly, positioning overlords around the bases, and having a few lings as backup in case the Hellions run past those queens, and only going into the roaches a bit later. I imagine we're going to see those same problems pop up, but I'm crossing my fingers and hoping he's improved a big way. I know he'll have improved at least a little bit with this. So it's just one of those things where when you swap from a player who's very F2 focused, a little bit more aggressive and so on, rather than being just a, mechanically clean technique-wise player who sits back and macros, you often just don't have any tight build order that can rely on queens to defend because your build's not tight enough. So I'm hoping that's changed. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, and we're going to write some notes here. So I'm going to create a little subheading in our document, and we're going to go practice game 1 versus Armor. So why did we just pull 3 drones off? That didn't make any sense. No need to run 3 drones from Reaper. Just the one that's getting shot. Alright, so his hatch just got blocked. He's still got... Yeah, so there's no... Could have blocked that, dropped that hatch. He's building more drones, which is good, but he hasn't built an Overlord. Overlord. Gotta remember to hurry up with that Overlord. Why did he not... Oh my god, he almost let that finish. Whew. That's fine. Queen needs to go back and chill, but yeah, no, this is solid. This is good. Third gets blocked. Prioritize Overlord as well as drones. Otherwise 36 as well as drones and queen. Otherwise 36 supply block will be brutal. So that's something you always got to remember. Oh, my third's blocked. Queen, Overlord, drones. Third queen, Overlord, drones. Spend your money on that. You've got cash because your hatch isn't going down. It's 300 minerals that you've got extra to hang on to. Overlord, a drone, and a queen. So the lings chased across the map and already had lost more lings than was needed. That's bad. Third hatch could have gone down faster. Remember to use camera hotkey or have drone control grouped for easily putting it down. Lost too many lanes. First to Reaper because third was blocked. Then to chasing Reaper. Hellions. So he's building too many lings right now. The queens should do the job here. The Overlord positioning is okay, but he's too obsessed with the high ground. I would say I'd put that Overlord there and another one there. This is okay for now. But the ling positioning is much better than it was previously. But he should be splitting the queens. Like, you don't want to just let them engage the lings only up there. That can get rough. Spores are going down really early, I would say. It's like pre-4:30, and that's just not necessary. Maybe he knows the Liberator always comes, and in that case it's actually right, but yeah. Spores are a bit early. Whoa. Dude, why are we going 2 more gases? That's not what he's meant to do, I don't think. Oh, maybe we did have that as standard, but it's gone 4th and 5th gas really early as well. He still hasn't moved the spore. Verse lib took a long time to react. OV vision. Not watching edges of map. Fourth and 5th gases way too early. This isn't terrible. This is just way too early. No reason to take more gases until oversaturated on 3 bases. More gases past the initial 3. Until over 3, yeah, the 3 gases. Because with his build order, he was taking the 2nd and 3rd. Let's look at this response to the lib. Transfuse. Still hasn't moved the spore or the drones. He's just staring at it. So he's got to be a little bit quicker with that. Yeah. Took a long time to react. Pull drones, move queen, move spore. This needs to be a bit more automatic. We're a bit slow on it. So notice there's no roach horn this game, guys. That ain't good. Forgot roach horn. No OV scout. It's also kind of rough. 4th base. I don't like that 4th location. I much prefer this. I keep seeing people take this. If anyone can in chat argue why this is not a terrible base when it's got a cliff right above it and a hedge there and a choke point into it, please let me know. I think this base is 1,000 times better. I think you're crazy if you take this base. But I've been facing it on the ladder as well, so I'm not sure if this is just a few people haven't thought it through or if there's actually a good reason for it that I haven't thought of. 4th base in wrong location. Easily sieged up from high ground and behind the hedges. Oh, come on, dude. Where's the roaches? Lings attacking Hellbats at 4th was really bad. Wasteful APM. Needed to tech up and let Queens handle it. No Hydroden. And yet there's a Spire going down. What's he doing? It's a weird one. So he's got 85 drones, which is nice. But once you see its Battlemech, yeah, you need to mass roaches. You get an insane economy. You really need to just mass overlords and roaches to survive against Battlemech. And then if you can split roaches to flank his Battlemech force at some point, that'll be great. But for now, you just need more stuff. Just roaches and OVs non-stop. You got a big economy, so stay calm, use Ravages, keep expanding, and if you can get enough roaches out and flank him, counterattack him, that sort of stuff, you should be able to handle this. Fortunately, that worker count is not effective right now. A ton of them are on that base, stacked up there, whereas they should be on these bases. That base is also super exposed. So we don't have any scouts out. Right now, we'd want to be sending like overlords or lings down the edges. He should still win here, I would say. But yeah, not having a Hydroden just kind of freaks me out because I'm like, whoa, shouldn't we be going really fast hive? So I don't really know what the Spy is about. Just seems like a really weird choice. I'm not going to tell him that because I'm like, I want to see what his game plan is here. I don't want to mess with it. So he just built 7 more drones when I told him he needs to just build roaches and overlords for the next minute. Like he needs 50 roaches and he should be splitting like 25 of these to try and flank. If the cyclones are here, the other 25 roaches should be going around the right hand side and looking at either sandwich or just backstab, run in and fuck him up. Oh, not 15 Ravagers, a few Ravagers. Only ever need a few Ravagers. Save the gas for Vipers and Hydras, Simmer. He should be really doing something. Yeah. But he hasn't split his army up. What's he doing? You gotta go make plays. You've got 0 map vision. You should have overlords on the edges. You should have roaches, lings spotting all the bases. And you should have your army split in 2 halves. Remember, if you're not actually at his base, pushing him up against a wall, your army should be split in 2. Half engages the cyclones from the front, half comes around from behind. Yeah, you can't just run around in a ball like this. This is such a shit Terran army if you split your army in half. But that's not half the army. That will actually lose to these cyclones. Thankfully, Armleg's not looking. Loses most of his cyclones already. But he's actually still going to get some of these units out. That should have been quite a few more roaches. That was sloppily done. Still no Hydroden. He's going Mass Roach Broodlord, but where are the Vipers as well?
Mineral field depleted. Our forces are under attack.
Versus Battlemech? Always split roaches into 2 squads as soon as you can, so you can flank the cyclones, or simply counterattack, kill their econ, etc. We have no overseers for vision. Changelings, go constantly. Split roaches and lings off. Roaches, lings, OBs for map vision. We're very blind. This is the same thing that Game Time experiences. I always talk about the Game Time headbutt because he's a very high level Zerg player who always needs to just run across and try to kill the opponent at a certain point. It's a holdover habit from when Warlock was playing with no control groups. And you can see even now. I mean, it's okay to have just one big army group at this point, I would say. But,
so much pressure.
It's making Broodlords, but what happened to the game plan? Why are we going Roach Broodlords? So this is one of these things where when a player plays by feel, I'm okay with that. But there needs to be some sort of inherent logic to it. And I feel like right now, this is just Mass Ravager into Broodlord. It can work, but it's super random, super gambly. And it's like, hey, why aren't we just working on the thing that we know works and we know is good? You know, we could have had Vipers 4 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, something like that. And we're making Broodlords. They're all on the same army group. It's sloppy.
Our forces, the cluster is under attack. Our drones are under attack. Our forces are under attack. Mineral feed. Our forces are under attack.
Yeah, Armleg's got it. Just a bit disorganized. How does Roach Hydra Viper do against Mass Thor?
Okay.
It wins.
So,
You're not meant to let them build 200 to Thors, but Hydra Viper does beat it if you micro up correctly.
yeah.
GG's? Not a bad game.
GGs.
So,
Um,
so what's your analysis?
I didn't
there?
go Hydra Viper because I never go against Battlemech, or I feel like Hydras don't work against Battlemech. But,
Hydras are actually, I mean, definitely you need to stay on roaches for a while, but we definitely don't want to go Mass Roach Ravager Broodlord. That's definitely not something that should work very often. So Roach Hydra Viper still works just fine. Fast Vipers are actually incredible against Cyclones. You just abduct, yoink. You do need a few more Vipers if they keep massing Cyclones. Yeah, stick to the game plan. Hydra's a perfectly fine versus. You do want to have some roaches still in the comp, but yeah, if you use the Vipers correctly, you get them out on time. It is very good. Cyclones still cost 150 minerals and 100 gas, and they build one at a time at a tech lab. So every abduct, it's very nice. You abduct 2 Cyclones with a Viper, that's 200 gas, 300 minerals. Same as abducting a Thor. Obviously, it's not as good as abducting 2 Thors with each Viper. But if you go up to like 6 or 7 Vipers, you can even do in that scenario potentially. At least 4 or 5. You can do really well with that. Now, and that can
Can
be
we pull up
super
that
huge.
replay and just go over it like?
That's
sorta slow?
exactly what I was going to suggest. Can you shoot me an invite?
Sure.
For some reason I got kicked out of the party. So so you can host that replay out, watch with others, and then just give me the steering wheel once we're in there. A lot of people lately have been asking, how do you beat mass Thors? Neuro's asking, how do you possibly beat Thors? Thors are OP.
If you notice, by the way, I lost track of my army a few times.
Yeah, definitely once or twice. There's a few units that got caught astray. We can go back. Just make me the lobby host. Lobby host. Or whatever it
Actually,
is.
I actually kicked you.
Right click in the lobby, not in the top right. Promote to lobby host.
There you go.
There we go. Beautiful. So, if you let your opponent get 200 of Thors, you done goofed 1,000 times to get to that point. Is just for, this is kind of for Twitch chat, but also if it comes up with you, it's like there is 1,000 things we can do before they get to 200 of Thors. That is one of the slowest, most immobile armies. It's very weak against swarm hosts. It's very weak against Zerglings if they don't have any Hellbats in there. There's a lot of things. The main thing, though, is you literally just abduct a few Thors, kill them, pull back. Abduct a few Thors, kill them, pull back. They're the juiciest targets for abduct. So as long as you know how to micro Vipers well enough to not run them in and get them all killed by Thors, which is a lot easier these days than it used to because the Thors don't do as much damage on that one shot that they're going to get off. You can actually do very, very good. But if you don't have good Viper micro, then it's very easy to think Vipers don't do well, which a lot of people have said, Vipers will just get killed. I'm like, okay, like you gotta learn how to use your Vipers a bit better. So before we get to the... Yeah, sorry, shoot.
I just wanted to say, I don't feel like I died to the Thors. I feel like I died to the Battlemech. Like I just feel like I got behind.
Yeah, you were actually totally fine economically this game, but
it didn't feel like that, but okay.
Yeah, the thing is because they pin you back, but you weren't splitting your army up correctly. So there was a point where you were maxed and he was like 140, I think, 145, 150. We'll check the exact numbers, but because you got such a crazy drone count up, you went a bit higher. So I guess to add another note here to this verse Battlemech, make a shitload of roaches off just 66 to 70 drones. So you want to, while taking up the Vipers and stuff, so you don't want to just drone your fourth like crazy when they're in your face with Cyclones, because you ended up going to 85 drones before you built any units, other than a few Lings and Queens, which is by default crazy no matter what you're up against. But in this scenario, he killed your fourth, then he killed your other fourth, and then he killed your previous fourth. So all those drones were doing nothing the whole time. The extra 20 workers we had, right? So if that was all just roaches being out earlier, not just keeping those hatches alive, but potentially running in and killing his SCVs. So there's two things you do. If you think about Cyclones and how they work, it's a fighter with long reach. Okay, we can just 8 times speed to that point. He can land punches on you without getting hit, right? Whenever he's scanning, he's running and picking off tumors, pulling back. Anytime he goes on creep, you got roach speed, he's fucked if he goes too deep, right? Anytime he gets surrounded, all those Cyclones and Hellions, very fragile units, they just get sandwiched and killed. But you need to have this set up as quickly as possible, because every second that goes by before you press him into a corner and force that fight, he's doing damage, right? He's landing punches, picks off a roach, picks off a roach, picks off a few creeptunes, picks off a few lings, runs in, snipes a hatch. So there's a bit of urgency, and that's why before droning the fourth, we always want to get to about 20 roaches. Sometimes, depending on how much pressure or what situation, sometimes even 30 roaches, right? And we want to split them up. So, sorry, let's go to when those Cyclones are running around. We can go back and look at, there's a lot of early game refinements as well. But Okay, so at this point, this is the point where, like I said, 85 drones, we're just getting into roaches. So if that roach speed was faster, that's such an important upgrade versus Battlemech, right?
Right.
Roach speed ASAP. And split roaches into 2 squads as soon as you can to flank the cyclones. So even when you did that, I don't think you split them onto a different control group. So that's something where you do need to plan that out a little bit. So what control groups, you're normally on 1 for main army. And that's going to be the smaller control group, right? Because all the new roaches you're building are going to make it a big army very quickly. So even if you've only, say you got 20 roaches, you might just leave 5 roaches on your main army and send 15 to go be the other army, right?
Okay.
And what control group would you put that army on?
2.
You can put that on 2? Okay.
Yeah.
We can see in this, yeah, right at the start, your first 10 roaches weren't control grouped from eggs. Let's go back a few minutes as well. See if your Zerglings were. 2, flanking, squad. And if they're being dicks and they're running around the corner of the map too much with those cyclones or anything, just remember that even showing the flanking force scares the shit out of them, and they know they can't really run into your base anymore and start picking off stuff without threat of getting flanked. And there's also a big chance of them running into... of your roaches running in and just killing all the SCVs on their third. You'll find there's a big window where they're kind of trying to fight on your side of the map, and they have like 1 tank at home and a few Hellions, like, or 2 Cyclones and 6 Hellions. 15 roaches run in, you get to kill 20 SCVs. It's almost game over right there.
If they're pressuring the 4th, do I still go for their base in that situation?
Well, like I said, you're either flanking them with the roach squad or you're going for their base. It's one or the other. So
how do you know which one you should be doing?
You're gonna have to choose. You just need experience. Okay. Every situation's different. So I mean, there's 1,000 situations there. So I can't tell you that. Like, you're just gonna have to get a feel for it, and you will very quickly. I would just always go for the flank first, or always go for the backstab first, the counter attack. You just choose whichever one tickles your fancy, and then you'll very quickly learn. Oh, in this situation, fuck man, like. He ran around the corners and dodged my flank and wasted all this time. Like, I should just ran across and killed him. So you get a feel by watching your replays, and you'll start to learn when to do which one. But let's go back here in this game. So check it. We're building 8 Zerglings in the early game, and they're not on a control group. So we can see that is not actually settled in very deep, that muscle memory of control grouping. So let's take a look at your very first Zerglings. Do we control group them? So, no, you're not control grouping your first 4 lings either. So I look at that, and I say, you are not used to control grouping properly yet. Because if you're not control grouping even your first Zerglings, that happens every game, right? It's not really comfortable mechanically. Is this normal, or is this a one-off in this game?
Well, the first few lings for sure, they should be control group. So yeah, I think maybe I was just I don't know, distracted or something.
Yeah, because we're doing that for the whole early game of this replay. Check it. 3 lings on the control group, but that was after they popped out. We just boxed them. That's a mechanic we should never be doing, right? Having a box units in control group, almost never, very rarely, right? Because they should always be grouped off the eggs. So this just tells us that, it's not really something you've been as good at practicing as we want. So that's the catch-22, man. We gotta like grind the fuck out of that and really be disciplined on making sure that's happening. Because load up your replays and check, and you should be aware right after a game. Ooh, I wasn't control grouping. Let's like slow down and play some empty custom games. No opponent or a very easy AI, and make sure every round of units I build, I am control grouping, So like right now, we've got 8 lings on your control group 1, 4 lings building, not on your control group. So if I go to your camera in this game, let's see, you're gonna just go to your rally point and grab them at some point. You shouldn't even really know where your rally point is, right? Yeah, you just like control clicked them or double clicked them and then added them to your army. Like, that should be something that's just not part of our repertoire, right? That's old muscle memory. And that's the shit we want to be getting rid of. We want to evict that from your brain as quickly as possible. Because remember, every second that hangs around, every game we do the old stuff, it undermines our ability to learn the new stuff, right? What's the point in control grouping eggs if we're just going to manually group them anyway? So if you can try to really consciously focus on that, that's going to be like a big thing that's so important. But if we're not doing that methodically, it is something where I don't want you to get too muddled up, because if we end up in a halfway house of like kind of learning the new mechanic, it's actually better to stick with select all army. So I want you to really just you know, commit hard to it or abandon it. But you've got to choose one way or the other. We can't be sitting in a halfway house of kind of control grouping sometimes, and sometimes reverting to just grabbing shit from our rally point. We got to kind of be real methodical with control grouping those eggs every production cycle, so it's deep in our muscle memory. It can't be a conscious decision in game. All right, commit really hard to control grouping eggs every single cycle. We have to embed that muscle memory deep. I'm writing that at the very top of today as our main homework point, because that's going to be like the underlying thing.
Right.
Or abandon control groups completely, and we'll just go back to doing stuff manually. But I reckon you can get it. It's just a matter of being a little bit more review focused, right? So you play 5 games one day, you have a good little sesh. I want to see a little bit more rewinding at the end of every game. So, you know, how do we put that into action? How do we make sure we happen this? How do we deal with our own inclinations? Rewind every replay and check at 8 times speed. You know, production tab. And you can see the hotkeys down the bottom, right? In the replay now, yeah? Yeah, just check that. Because then every time you see units pop up, you can just compare it. Did units get added down there to the number? And super easy to check. Check it and be disciplined. Making sure we do it every game. Awesome. That's going to be huge, man. That's going to be massive. All right. So, Battlemech. So like I was talking about, let's get to that point and visualize what you want to do here. And I mean, Cyril had some great times where he did this. I posted a few clips on my Instagram of it from it's like Home Story Cup or something like that. A few times where he'd done it, where he was surrounding times Battlemech with like Ling Bane. Really hard to do it consistently with Ling Bane. I would not recommend it. But Cyril's Cyril, so he was doing it repeatedly. And it was beautiful. Like, it looked like he was on the edge of getting smashed, and then a Ling Bane flank would come, and all the Hellion Cyclone would just get busted, and it was amazing. So for us here, problem was we obviously built 85 drones. So remember, that would have been much better if we already had the roaches there, some morphed as Ravagers, especially if we already had roach speed. He comes forward, locks on, we run at him, he's got to start pulling back, and then we pull back, and hopefully the vision breaks, and then the lock-ons break, right? And especially with those transfusers, those queens can buy you a lot of time, right? If he's got to pull back and he can't just run up to you the way he did here, all these queens with energy, they buy you quite a bit of time. And then you're kind of like, okay, go in, pull back, go in, pull back, right? Because every time you pull back, you want him to be a little bit slow, because you go towards him, you go oogie boogie, the Cyclones and the Hellions run backwards, but you run back at the same time. And if he doesn't react quickly enough, it breaks the vision, right? Especially if you can ever hold high ground. This map's kind of awkward over here, right? But if he was pressuring, you see where I'm signaling?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you can obviously use the ramp as well. And then a lot of people get real frustrated because the Terran just scans. But if he's scanning, that's a lot of money he's wasting. So it's all fine. Remember, you can bleed out a few roaches, a few queens here. We just got to buy enough time to get that 20 roaches or so. And then what do? We're going to box half of our roaches, or 15. Steal them onto control group 2, so alt 2. And then we're just going to go move there to flank him, right? Or move there, dive in. So let's take a look at his third. Look at his base. This is very common with Battlemech. Look at this greedy piece of shit. What's he got at home? Fucking nothing, man. 10 roaches could run into that third and just ruin his whole build order. So that's really good to know, because it tells us, often we get in the feeling if he can harass, he can attack, we can't do anything. He gets 4 bases and maxed out for free with Battlemech. This tells us, wait a second. There is a big window where if we get some shit in his mineral lines or on his side of the map, he's fucked. Likewise, if we clamp the army down on those Cyclones and Hellions, we could be making a hive right now. Going into Hydras, spread and creep, up on 4 or 5 bases, bam, bam, you know, and then just start abducting Cyclones, tanks, Thors, and have a party. So you just got to remember that anytime we're kind of running at the Cyclones and Hellions in a clump, It's like watching a fighter just run forwards at the guy with the longer reach constantly, and that guy's just punching him in the nose over and over again, and just moving backwards, punching him in the nose. But the moment you send the flanking force, it's like you've managed to trip him, or you've managed to push him up against the fence or something like that. And we get to see just how fucking shitty Cyclones and Hellions are, because this composition feels so overpowered and frustrating to play against when it's just picking at you. And the moment you force it to stand its ground, and it's the same thing, sometimes you can max out on roaches, like in this game. Fast forward to that point. You're gonna max out on roaches. By the way, I was telling you, just roaches. You built another 7 drones there. They should have all been roaches. Yeah. So it should have been just roaches. If when we maxed out, which is like, what, 10 minutes just after, we didn't need 15 Ravages. Normally I'd save the gas for Vipers, but not the end of the world. But if you went across the map right now...
I have a weird
you might
reflex
be able
of
to do it.
getting extra drones when I should be not. I don't know where that comes from.
It's because you're sitting back and you feel impotent here. It's because you don't have a plan. A lot of people do this first Battlemech.
Yeah.
Like, I defended for a second. I guess build more drones. But instead, you're going to be a lot more focused on off that 3 base saturation without even droning the 4th, massing more roaches, because you need to get that roach force. Once you get the flanking force out, at the very least, you can force him to start building tanks to not die, and you can force his Cyclone Hellion to behave a lot more conservatively. But as long as we're running around in one defensive blob, the Terran's like, oh yeah, he feels good. I can go build a 5th on location right now. You know, I can do whatever the fuck I want. My Cyclone Hellion can just pick at you for free. Hells yeah. The moment, even if he spots the roach flank coming, he's like, oh shit, and he's got to start maneuvering a lot more carefully on the map, right? He's got to be worried because suddenly there's roaches sharking around and 2 squads looking to get him. But look at his base right now as well. So imagine if we ran across, and if he didn't spot your army coming, even if he runs in to backstab you, look at his army at his 3rd. Even if the tanks are siege, you can just win the game. But we stop to kill some rocks. And this is very common. So remember, even if you're attacking, yes, the Cyclone Hellion can land some punches on you while you're moving across the map, or say the fight starts out front, the 3rd and 4th out here. But very soon, you're in these mineral lines, and you're in their economy, and you're killing depots and SCVs and shit. And that Cyclone Hellion needs to kind of stand and fight. And that's where it becomes terrible, right? If they don't have enough tank siege, like on the high ground, you just run in and overwhelm them. So there's always the opportunity for a maxed roach engage. Sometimes a little before maxed. So giant roach push to their base, ignoring them sniping your 4th or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I've had that happen against a really high level Battlemech player where they quickly split and sniped my 4th, my natural, and my 3rd by splitting the Cyclones up, and I was pretty fucking mad. But I did kill like 70 SCVs. So even though I was on one base with 70 drones, it actually kind of equalized, and most of them won't have the presence of mind to quickly split up their Cyclones and kill all your bases. Ignoring them sniping a base or 2 and crush them at home. So we still want to go up to Roach Hydra Viper as well, but it's good to kind of have these timings in mind. So now let's go back to the early game. Besides the control grouping, which definitely is a deal, obviously the thing we're always working on is if they block our 3rd, just remember to build that Overlord. I whispered that in your ear, because otherwise that 36 supply block is brutal. Because we're distracted by the Reaper, distracted by trying to get the delayed hatch down. So I like that you built extra drones when that was first blocked. You went, oh, it's blocked. All right, build drones, spend my lava, build a 3rd queen. But also need to add an Overlord to that little bit of muscle memory that you've got there. Also, we could have got the 3rd down. So we should either use the camera location, or personally, I actually have this drone control grouped. So I would have this drone on my 2nd army key on control group 2 at the 3rd. Just so I can double tap it and throw the hatch down real easily as soon as that Reaper gets deflected, or as soon as I hit 300 minerals. And if you got that down, it's just smoother, right? It's just an easier opening for you, less chances of getting distracted. So just a small thing, but try to streamline that a little bit, and just makes your opening a little bit easier. So not a bad opening at this point. It's looking pretty damn good. Creep's good. Reaper comes in as a dick, but doesn't get it. Okay, so at some point here, though, we are going to freeze up a little bit. Let's take a look. So there we go. More drones, more Overlords. This is great. It's really good. So these 3 lings chasing the Reaper, never do that because they love killing them for free. So that's kind of nasty a little bit. We start a 4th queen here. we start a 5th queen? We should be starting a 5th queen real soon as well. Let's see. So we're a little slow to start the extra queens, right? And you can see you've got the money. I like that you rebuilt your lings, but honestly, a 2 Hellion run by is not that scary. So we actually could have droned the 3rd up a little bit already. And even, obviously, if the Hellions dart in like that, you can just pull them back manually if you need to. But if we already had like 5-6 drones go on that 3rd right now, it's a real big boost to our income. And that's super, super nice. So we don't need to go up to 16 lings quite as early. Very small optimization, but just something to keep in mind. Likewise here, you need to get that creep spread over there a bit quicker. And you want to make sure your queens don't go up that far because your natural's still exposed. You want to keep them in a bit more of a central location where possible. And then even split the queens up as needed. So, because if he ran up into your natural and microed really well, would have been a little hard. You did have your lings pre-split really well, but then you started clumping them up. And then you started running out and trying to surround the Hellions, which can work. And I don't mind it. Just don't rely on that. The problem is if we keep doing that, I'm worried we'll rely on it too much and not get as good at our queen movement. So just keep in mind that queen movement is the more important thing. Your spore crawlers went down super duper early.
Okay.
I often say, hey, you can probably get away with delaying them to 4:45. 4:30 is technically like when we should build them for Banshees, but 4:45 is okay. You built yours at about 4:25, 4:24, something like that. Just could be delayed slightly. These are all small things. Overall, this is all still a good opening at this point. But one thing I'm wondering is, when's the Roach Warren go down? Without looking at your build order right up, when is it meant to go down? Because I remember we decided, and I don't know if you've stuck with this or you've changed it, that your Roach Warren goes down just as your standard defensive structure at some point. So when off the top of your head do you normally drop that?
Should go down by like 4:30, I feel.
4:30. Well, let's imagine maybe there's a little bit of chaos in the early game. Does that link up with anything else in our build order?
Our forces are under attack.
No. Should it link up with something?
Why did you put the gases down on your natural in this game? What's the timing for that?
Let's see when I put them down.
It's gonna happen in just a sec.
Our forces are under attack.
Now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I put them down when I have 3 base mineral saturation.
Okay,
So
so you're
14.
you're actually doing a rule of 1 gas. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you did take them a little bit early because you weren't quite there. You kind of usually want to
It
wait
was
till
like
you're
14, I think. 14
Yeah.
or 16 on the 3rd.
you kind of want to wait till you're more closer to 18 or something like that, right? Because your drones had all just popped out, right? So you don't actually have the drones to replace, you know, the drones, if the drones pull off minerals to go on these gases. So it was a little earlier than needed. But yeah, it's definitely something where we want that defensive tech structure before we go for that. So that's okay with the gases. So I thought we were doing a fast 2nd and 3rd gas build, but with that, let's just write down a note here. Gases take a little later. Let your 3rd get a few more drones.
Okay.
Or I would be okay if it was like 15, or if it's 15 out of 16, say, or something. But you know you've got like, you know, more drones in production right at that moment. So you're building 10 more drones. You know it's about to get crazy oversaturated, right? So you look at your 3rd, you're like, oh, it's 14, 15 drones, but I just built a big round of drones. They're going to be getting there. So, oh yeah, okay, it's time. Let's take those eggs, you know? Basically, we just want to delay those gases just a little bit. So in terms of 4 minutes 30, that's an okay time for your Roach Warren. We just want to make sure we're not going kind of like too slow on droning your 3rd. Because right now you're building spores, queens. We're taking a little long to drone our 3rd. We're building a ton of lings quite early, like 16 lings plus the 4 or 6 we already lost. So we either stick with the way you're doing it, where you're very safe with your lings, your queen count, your spores, and we delay the Roach Warren to 5 minutes. But I think the important thing is we could kind of say, make sure we kind of spend all our lava to drone towards the third. Try to get like close to 8 workers on the third, and then drop the roach warren.
Okay.
So let's try and say 8 drones on third, then roach warren. Yeah. And that'll be about 5 minutes. But like I said, like depending on what we're focusing on, we can speed that roach warren up a little bit if we delay these zerglings a little bit. If we get a few drones on our third a little bit early, if we get our creep out in front of that like third and that sort of stuff. It's hard on this map because this map, that third spread so far, right? It's so wide open. It's easy for Hellions to run in. But on a lot of maps like Eternal Empire or something, it is a lot easier to drone that third up real quick. So just remember, at this moment, a lot of people go, oh, my third's not done. I can't protect it. Let's not drone. But I'm a big fan of if you can get drones mining from that as quickly as possible, especially if, say, they're Hellions, just sit at home, which some people do. Fuck yeah, go for it, man. It's such a big boost to your minerals, and that can be really big. So that's something I just want you to kind of critically engage with every time you're looking at your replays. Like, hey, how long does it take me to drone that third? And we were talking about benchmarks earlier for looking at how good you did your build. Remember what I said? How quickly do we fully saturate that third base? And I think you did a perfectly fine job this game, but your gases were a little slow, and your roach warren was very late. So we were a little vulnerable to some of those later Hellbat attacks and that sort of thing. And let's take a look. So I said like 530, full 3 base mineral saturation. Looks like we hit that. 18, 13, 15. We're pretty close. So it's not bad. Not bad. So that tells us, okay, pretty good. I mean, depending on what's going on in the game, you might aim for higher than that as well, right? You might be like, oh, actually, you know what? We can do better than that. So let's go up to that benchmark we wrote down before. Let's aim for 5 minutes. 3 base full saturation on minerals. All right. Maybe even before that. I think in the past I have sometimes said like, hey, 430 if there's no pressure at all, right? Like 430, you can have that full mineral. Even before then, actually, because like with a 211, yeah, you can have that fully saturated by like 420. 4 minutes 20, you could actually have that full on minerals. That's where there's no Hellion pressure, of course, right? So it's a bit of a different scenario, but it's kind of good just to keep it in perspective, right? So if you're ever playing some weirdo who just puts a tank on the high ground and builds 3 command centers or something, yeah, let's get a crazy worker count really, really fast. Here, this is not crazy Hellion aggression, right? This is not like gas first, non-stop Hellions in your face. This is like very standard Hellion pressure, very standard Liberator, pretty normal stuff. Cool. All right, so just have a bit more emphasis on the roach warren. Other than that, things looked okay. What about this Liberator? I noticed the Liberator seemed to disrupt you a little bit more than is normal. So I always talk about how organized we've got to be versus Liberators. I think we spotted it quite late the first time. So looking at your mini-map, you can notice you don't really have your overlords fully set up. So one thing I'd noticed looking at your vision, and if you go to everyone's camera, I'd say we're missing an overlord in the middle, just to give us full vision around our bases. Okay. But other than that, these two are the next ones that should be really important, right? And instead, you had these 2 overlords that are sitting right there, and those are rallied just across the map for some reason. I'm not sure what happened there.
They're rallied across the map?
Yeah, you've clicked them to this point where I'm signaling on the other side of the map.
How do you know that?
Well, if you click on them, if you select those overlords, you can see the green move point path. But I remember because later in the replay, these 2 overlords wandered across while you didn't have overlords on the edges of your base. That's why I paid attention to it. I
don't know how that happened,
Yeah, so maybe just some sort of odd little mistake. Do we have overlords accidentally on a control group? Nope. Just a mistake. But yeah, having those overlords in position would have been good, right? Because it would have given you a little bit more warning. But let's watch this from your camera and tell me what you could do better here.
I think I know how that happened. I tried to get one here and one here.
Sorry, signal again?
At the 2 bases. The possible thirds.
Yeah, do the signals again, just to show me.
Over here and over here.
What for?
To see when he's taking his third.
That's what Zerglings are for.
That's where they were going. But I guess I sent one down and then
You just
when I got
misclicked the
second one.
deselect, right?
Yeah, I probably
Yeah,
just misclicked it with the second overlord. So they both went to the top expansion.
I think he builds a Viking after the lib anyway, so like they're just free kills anyway. So try not to do that. Zerglings can always spot that 1,000 times better. That's an old habit because in the past you'd select all army, you'd pull them back, which is and overlords wouldn't get selected. So it's tempting for you to do that. With the new setup, we always want to use those Zerglings wherever possible. All right, so let's watch your camera here, and I want you to just talk about what you could do better every tiny step once this lib comes in a sec, which I think is any moment now. We should see that lib siege up. Just try to get in your head of what you were doing in the moment.
Okay, well, right now I'm focused on the Hellions.
Sorry, it's a few seconds later. And here we go.
Here it comes. So now I'm trying to build my gases. I guess I didn't notice it yet. Now I noticed it, I think.
Our drones are under attack.
Pull drones, you queued queen. That was actually a pretty good response. I think that was a good response from you. It was just noticing it late, right? Yeah. So the overlord being there a little bit earlier might have given you earlier warning, but realistically, just that was an okay response. I think it's maybe the second one where you screw up because it comes back in. Here we go. So once again, oh, we actually had a queen in position.
I put it down there, yeah, but then it still got in, I think.
Okay,
because
here we go.
Back. Yeah, so I'm not sure why I pulled that queen back. I think it was hotkeyed with the creep queens.
Yeah, very likely.
So I pulled it out of position. After I put it at the bottom of my base, I pulled it away.
You know what?
Creep.
It wasn't terrible. We just could have pulled the drones away a little bit faster. That's all. On that second one. So when I was watching it from my view, because I wasn't watching from your camera, I was like, oh shit. Because I got the impression you were looking at it and just reacting really slow and freezing up. You weren't. You were just slow to react. So the main thing there is obviously just mini-map awareness and stuff. But no, you did pretty good. So that's good. It's good to kind of double check that and go, oh, no, you did all right there. I'm okay with the sequence of actions. Thought there was a misordering of it. So you can see here, because that Roach Warren's real late, right? We're like, okay. And we're doing what you should never do in any matchup unless you know your opponent's... I'm building Planetaries and Ravens or something like that, you know, which is drone the fourth without units. So we should be pumping roaches, a round of roaches, and then like if it's bio going into Link Bane, if it's mech, more roaches going up into Hydras and stuff. So because, yeah, we're kind of in this awkward position from here just because that Roach Warren was delayed. So imagine we could already have Roach speed started by now, and that would have been finished when the first cyclones were pressuring you. So imagine if you just had like 12, 13 roaches with roach speed when those first cyclones come. This is such an easier game for you. Then you can drone up your fourth base after building those roaches, after starting that roach speed. You can still have a sick economy and like you'd just be in such an easier position. That'd be awesome.
Well, okay, let's say you realize you fucked up. Right? So like I realize my roach warren is late.
Yeah.
So what do I do then if I can't build roaches?
Well, your Roach Warren is 2 minutes late, like, or 2.5 based off the timing you had in your head. So that is, like, minutes have gone by here of fucking up. So this is not a small mistake. This is something that we should have been building roaches a minute ago, or thinking about it at least, right, or realizing this. So if it was 20, 30 seconds, just building the fourth, building more drones makes sense. In this case, I would actually have built more Zerglings and looked for a mixture of using them to help defend, but also run by my opponent while I'm waiting for that Roach Warren. And the problem here, you see you build another 12 drones. He's like, what can I do? Build some lings. Your Roach Warren's actually done. And this is what happens when it's not done in time initially. Same thing I do. You're like, oh, now it's done shit. And then, like, often you build an extra wave of lings because you're in this weird trapped position. So yeah, Roach Warren being on time would make this way better. The Spire and the Infestation Pit, remember, just stick with the Hydra Viper and you'll actually be really comfortable. But it's more important about just using those roaches. Like I said, build a big ton of roaches, get the flank going, get the backstab going. It's awkward and a bit uncomfortable to do, but I often get in games where I'm like, well, this is crazy. Like, the mech player just gets to have the same economy as me. This is unfair. But then I actually cram the roaches into their mineral line or onto their army, and I'm like, oh, I kill your whole army and I lose 15 supply? Oh, I see why it's fair. You're building the bad mech units. Like these are, you're not building the tanks and Thors. So just remember, it's a very different beast to normal like big tank Thor push coming our way, right? This is all about the mobility. It's all about him being a dick and trying to get us a bit tilted. So stay calm. Now we know the game plan for it. It's going to be a matter of getting comfortable with it. So remember, 3 base saturation, pump roaches, split roaches into 2 squads, and we either flank or we backstab, right? So we counterattack their mineral lines or we flank their army. And while we're doing that, we drone the 4th up to this work account. We're still taking a Vipers. Our roaches look for what they can do. Often we end up maxing on roaches. And then we add Vipers. Obviously try to get as many Vipers as we can. 4, 5, 6 Vipers, however many. And then we start adding Hydras in just for a bit more damage output. And especially because they're going to swap into tanks usually, right? Your heavy roach usage and you using your roaches well will force them back into traditional mech, which counters the roaches. And that's where your Hydra Viper gets to once again be just a normal Hydra Viper versus mech game, which is really nice. Cool, man.
Is this a terrible idea?
The 15 Ravages?
Yeah.
It's if you went straight across the map, I would have been totally happy with it.
Okay.
It's just the fact that you kind of dilly-dally and start breaking rocks, and you've got 0 map vision right now. I like that you started making overseers here. That's something I was like, I wish we were just even building a few handful of lings and just peppering them on the edges. So go to everyone's camera. I'd be sending Overlord, 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 or lings there. And I would be sending like some roach spotters across the map. Or, like I said, maybe I wouldn't need to do that, because I'd have half of my army running around the map looking to flank and intercept their army, right? So you naturally get map vision that way. Either way, you'd have more of an idea what's going on. But when it does come to push, which, remember, you're maxed out 20 seconds ago, then you kill rocks, then you get pulled up here. He's at 160 supply. Look at his base. Even if the Cyclones and Hellions are at home, it's 5 tanks. This is a shit army. He can't defend his 4th. He can't defend his 3rd or his natural. He is dead if we fight right now. But what a difference 45 seconds or a minute can make, right? So we could have been going straight across the map for an at latest 11-minute engage. And even though we trapped some of his units, we didn't split our army well enough, right? And then we headbutt blindly into a choke point. Notice how our whole army's stuck against this extractor? So even though it doesn't look like a choke, because we're coming from the right, it is. We need to pull back and come from more of a central angle to actually be spread out. We're just kind of, you know, just banging our heads into a choke. We also don't have overseers for high ground vision, so we can't see most of those tanks. And suddenly we're like, oh shit, we just took the worst possible engage and it was delayed a little bit. Okay. And then we keep going, but we've only got part of our army and we're a little bit slow to capitalize. Notice here, all his army's in a blob at his natural. You actually could have ran into his 3rd and killed these building command centers, a ton of SCVs and depots, and just kind of ran backwards and corrosive biled his shit. But because you've lost a lot of units, going for the planetary, which normally I think if you kept those other units alive would have been okay, it becomes a bad move because you're short on units, number 1. Number 2, because you can get sandwiched. And number 3, because we waste our first corrosive bile wave.
Right.
Remember how you meant to use corrosive bile versus planetaries? Even before they start repairing, you always do it in a beautiful ring around the edge, so it's both hitting the planetary and repairing SCVs. And when you get good at that, it is beautiful. You just go, and if those SCVs try to repair, they all get killed by the line of corrosive biles along there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because I think you do it on the next wave, right? I think the next wave of biles, you'll do it on the edges, but it's a little too late. Yeah, you did it. It wasn't quite as spread out as I would have liked it, but you definitely, you know, you got more of the idea there. So that would have been really big. So that's cool. I mean, this is so empowering when you look at a replay and you're like, oh shit, at X point, I had this army and he had an army that's not as good. Like if we just fought at that point, it would have been awesome, right? So just keep in mind, if you go for the maxed roach push, don't wait till you're maxed and then go. You should be moving across the map at 180 supply, even earlier maybe, right? If you're doing the roach split up well enough, you might have already dived in and killed a few tanks with 20 roaches while defending at home against the Cyclone Hellion, and then just follow up with another wave as you reinforce and just go across and dive into the natural or something. So you're going to start to figure this out. Overseers for dropping changelings and sending ahead. beautiful way to get an idea of what's actually going on in those bases and whether or not it's a good idea to attack as well. So, yeah, that's going to be good, man.
Gotcha.
Awesome. All right, man, we're out of time.
Gotcha.
But
Thank you.
please play some more games with Armleg and just try to follow that verse Battlemech game plan. So I've wrote a shit ton of notes. None of them are as important as the verse Battlemech posts stuff, which I'm going to post to the top under homework. So I'm going to copy paste.
Homework.
There we go.
Okay.
Cut and paste. So you see under homework there, yeah, because the homework's like basically saying, hey, this is the most important thing, which is control grouping eggs, man. The other stuff is, yeah, that response to Battlemech, because it's such a unique fuck of a style, man. So many people get tilted and just play like so much worse against Battlemech. Once you've flanked those cyclones a few more times, you'll start to feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm not getting tilted actually. I'm just getting confused.
Just kind of not having a game plan. Good. Well, that's
Yeah,
good.
Exactly. Like
That's the better of the getting. If you're running circles around you, you're just kind of scratching your head rather than raging. That's very good.
just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
That's like,
Well, hopefully it kicks in, man. So good luck with the practice. Yeah, hit that mechanic stuff hard. Hope you get used to those control grouping the eggs every round, no matter what's happening, right from the start of the game. And hopefully beat Armleg's Battlemech in the next few games. Good luck, man.
okay, thanks.
All right. Good night. Okay, fantastic. Good little sesh there, guys. So we noticed that the control grouping eggs not being automatic is the big thing, where it's like that needs to either be happening every game or we need to abandon it. And that's why in the next session we're going to assess, look at a few replays, and hopefully it'll be really, in there. If it's not, I'll really push for us to abandon the idea of using the control groups, and I'll just figure, let's use select all army. Let's get it down. That's fine. Only use the most basic control group usage. It's not like he doesn't know how to use control groups. It's just, control grouping eggs isn't the automatic baseline, and it's very different doing that to using select all army as your primary way of